Hello and welcome to the Week 7 NFL DFS preview for the top matchups, running back and wide receiver we will be digging into today. There has been some interesting trade news already this morning. Davante Adams has been traded to the Jets and Amari Cooper has been traded to the Buffalo Bills. Now, Week 6 was an interesting one. Our top matchup tool went nuts. Derrick Henry had a game. Tony Pollard had a game. Several wide receivers did as well. And now let's dig into this week's. But before we do, come join us at LineStar. We have a couple ways, if you've never tried us before, that you can do it for free. Go through the app stores, iOS or Android app store, and you can get 7 free day trial. Come try us out. You do get access to both the website and the apps with those with that free trial. Now let's dig into today's slate, or Sunday slate, I should say. I'm going to go over to FanDuel just because there is that Week 7 game. Actually, that one's not going to pop up. Let's just go to DraftKings. More players play on DraftKings. Now, let's get into it. Our top matchups for Week 7, starting with the running back spot. Number one matchup, Bills ranked 32nd versus Tony Pollard. We're in a very interesting spot here. Tyjae Spears got banged up last week. He looks to be questionable. If Spears is out, Tony Pollard's workload could just be absolutely huge here, and he's in a very nice spot. He had a decent week the last 2 weeks. My only issue with Tony Pollard is I do worry a little bit about his ceiling with this Tennessee Titans team, as they just really aren't able to score that much. Outside of the absolute mess that is the Miami Dolphins right now, they haven't been able to top more than 17 points. So that is my one worry going with Pollard, but he is in a very good matchup versus the Bills, who have just been giving it up to running back lately. Over the last 4, they are allowing 124.8 rushing yards to go along with 55.8 receiving yards per game and 0.5 touchdowns. So it's a nice spot for Pollard. However, you do have to be a little bit concerned with upside. Next, we got Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams is a just absolute beast and a workload monster, and now in a very positive matchup versus the Raiders, he should be in for a day. I love Pollard this week. The Raiders are allowing 110.8 rushing yards per game this season, and then 35.5 receiving yards to go around that, and 0.7 touchdowns per game to the running back. Kyren Williams is going to have a huge workload. He also may have Cooper Kupp back, which I think would only help Kyren Williams, because the Raiders would have to worry about Kyren and Cooper and not just Kyren. And that's kind of how the Rams have been lately, where they've been very one-dimensional. The offense has ran through Kyren. He has been a total workhorse, and I think that continues even with Cooper Kupp. But there's just more upside in the scoring department with Kupp there. So very much in for Kyren this week. 43.5 game total, in a great spot versus the Raiders. Next, we got Alexander Mattison and Austin Ekeler. I'm going to kind of lump these two together because they're both kind of split backfields, and we're not totally sure what's going to go on with the injury news here this week. So Austin Ekeler, it could very well be Brian Robinson Jr. Or what happened last week was Baltimore got off to a very quick start, and Jeremy McNichols never really got going, but he could slide in more as the running back one doing the work on the ground over Austin Ekeler, or Brian Robinson could come back and be healthy to play in this great matchup versus Carolina Panthers. So who this is right now is a little in the air. Then we got Alexander Mattison. Zamir White was questionable all week last week. Late Saturday night, he got deemed out. So this very well could be Zamir White or Alexander Madison. Now, let's talk about Jonathan Taylor. He is fifth on this list, but he's in a very good spot. He was deemed out on Friday. If he plays, he's in an absolute smash spot versus the Dolphins, who are giving up 119 yards per game and 1.8 touchdowns per game over the last 4. So, if you are on a site more like FanDuel, where it is, half point PPR, those touchdowns mean a little bit more. Jonathan Taylor is in an absolute dynamite spot. And if he is out, then it is Trey Sermon who will carry the rock the most. And he becomes interesting, but obviously not quite as explosive as Jonathan Taylor. Now let's get over to the wide receiver ones. The best matchup, we got DK Metcalf going against the Falcons, who have just been getting torched versus the wide receiver. They're allowing 153 yards per game and 1.8 touchdowns per game to the wide receiver. DK Metcalf has just been a target monster. He's averaging 9 per game so far this year, but 11 last week, 7 the week before, 12, 6, and 14. He does have multiple games of double-digit targets, and this is a spot versus the Falcons that it could be another one. I love the spot for DK Metcalf to potentially have one of those ceiling-type games we know he can have. Don't mind pairing him with good old Geno Smith and maybe Drake London coming back as well, as it's a decent matchup for Drake. Or you could go Kenneth Walker. Very interested in some game stacks with a 51-point total in that spot. Next, we got Romeo Doubs. We got to talk about him in the Packers wide receiver situation because it is kind of interesting. They don't have a true number one. Romeo Doubs plays the most snaps. He is third on the team in targets, with Jayden Reed being 1 in targets and number 2 in snaps. So Jayden Reed kind of is their alpha wide receiver, but he plays in the slot more. Therefore, we can't really put him as the wide receiver 1, but he kind of acts like it, whereas Doubs is the one playing the most routes and on the field the most. So we have him, but I think you need to consider Jayden Reed in this spot as well. And an aspect that I do want to add to this, because there's that 47.5 total and both offenses are potent, if we go to the wide receiver 2 tab, Tank Dell is at the top of the list. So that is a very interesting little game stat correlation you can add with those two using the matchup tool. Now, let's go back to the wide receiver 1 spot. And the next guy we are talking about is Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is in just an absolute great spot versus Minnesota. One of the things I want to point out here, so far Amon-Ra has had a good season. Nothing, bad, but not the level that we're used to with him. And a main factor is that Detroit Lions are just rolling people. They have had one game where they've actually had to put the foot on the gas a little bit, and they weren't dominating or controlling the game, and that was against Tampa Bay. What did Amon-Ra do? 18 targets, 11 receptions for 119 yards. Jared Goff is playing great football right now. The Vikings are giving it up to wide receivers, 227.5 yards per game, 1.3 touchdowns, ranked 32nd in fantasy point scoring. This is a dynamite spot for Amon-Ra St. Brown in a game where the Detroit Lions are road dogs. They are underdogs in this game. It makes me like Amon-Ra St. Brown. That is one of the things we have to think about with this Detroit Lions team, is that they have been so good that they really haven't had to throw the ball that much. The last 2 weeks, Jared Goff has only had 18 completions. They just have not had to throw the ball. This is a matchup where they might, and there's a 50-point game total. And Justin Jefferson's on the other side, who could be a great spot to target some mini correlation there. So I love Amon-Ra. Great spot for him. Next, I want to, we generally only do 3, but we kind of did 5 on running back. And I want to touch real quick on Deontay Johnson. Once again, 10 targets last week. Now he's in a great spot for versus the Commanders. You can absolutely target this game, and we have a 51.5 game total, so I love this spot. Panthers are giving it up on the defensive side. The Commanders are also giving it up on the defensive side. We have a 51.5 game total. This game could be very interesting. Two key spots to target versus the Commanders: Deontay Johnson, Chuba Hubbard. We have Deontay here on the top of our team defense tool. It's a great spot to target. And then we have Cincinnati coming in at 26. And I have Amari Cooper right here, but that is going to be Jerry Jeudy. So you're going to be able to get a value play versus the Bengals. I think it's interesting having Jeudy be the wide receiver one in a good spot versus the Cincinnati Bengals, who've been giving up 2 wide receiver. You still got to deal with dusty Deshaun Watson, but at least he is cheap for a wide receiver one in a good matchup. That'll do it for us today, guys. Hope you guys found this beneficial. Have a good one. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as this is a new video still, and we are trying to build up its views. Have a good one, guys. I'll see you next week. And I'll see you later this week for more NFL DFS content. Peace.